most exposing story yet?
I'm laughing because the whole thing with Alpha being my most personal film actually is not a quote from me at all. It's a quote from the people who distributed and sold the film. You know, they put this on the canned pamphlets so that it looks good.
Yeah.
So the idea came up for that. That would be weird for me to say that, but because I think all my films are very personal, you see, and they just evolve because I evolve. And so I certainly hope that, you know, for my next film, people will say that it's my most personal yet, and so on. So I assume because it's the last one, yes, it is my most personal yet, but all this is a very continuous movement. So I did not say that, but I'm everywhere in my films all the time. I'm everywhere in my films. Let's say that maybe this one might be the most directly linked to some parts of my story, but it doesn't create a hierarchy into as far as I imply myself in my film. That's what I mean.
So the quote I read, and again, maybe you didn't say this is why I always ask because I don't trust the internet, was exposing, that the film was exposing to you. I don't know, what that means to you, or if you didn't say that.
No. I think I said this, but like again, in the idea that, you know, you have to bear in mind that really for me, filmmaking is a continuous movement. And it's not like it stops after one film and then I'm thinking, oh, what am I gonna do next? It's really trying constantly to tackle, you know, the deeper end of me, like the dark corners of myself, the things that are still taboo in myself, and trying to push myself and force myself into those walls, and to try to express something that up to now I could not, you know. So here with Alpha, I think that the most exposing thing is that I actually had to deal with love, verbalizing love, and I don't know if you've seen my previous films, but they were not very talkative.
What's the dialogue in this one?
This one has way more dialogue, but the reason for that is not because I thought, okay, let's see if you can write dialogues. I still don't know about that, by the way. But the thing is that the center theme between being a lot about, obviously, trauma, hence what is left taboo, what is left unsaid, and that by being left unsaid, then it can only create more trauma and trickle down, you know, into time and into further generation being the recipients of trauma that don't even belong to them. The unsaid being at this center, I knew that my characters needed to actually say things. They had to name things, name their emotions, name the situation that they are in, and to just like be, you know, true to each other in order to try to stop the cycle. So I had to do that too. And for me, that was exposing because I'm, you know, by nature pretty, I mistrust words very much, especially in my work. I always am very wary that words might, you know, minimize the emotion or over-explain it and hence create a distance that would miss its goal and stuff like this, and hence the fact that my two previous features were not very talkative. I do believe first and foremost in image and sound. I mean, I'm not a writer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm not a novelist. My first tools are image and sound. So for me, when I write a scene, it's first how can I express what I want, the emotion I want to express there, only with image and sound. And if I deem that something is missing still, then I will use dialogue, and that's how I work when I write. And here I had to, in that way, force myself a little bit to confront myself to the rawness of words while trying to not make them, not only not to make them minimize the emotion, but to actually create it, which is something that I think I have never done before.
And it's so interesting because so many filmmakers have the opposite problem where they're a little too verbose. You really trust your audiences to follow along and your actors to communicate so much without speaking.
Yeah, maybe to a fault sometimes. Maybe, I mean, that's what my producers say. I trust the audience a lot, like a lot. And you're welcome. That's the only way I can communicate with you as well. You know, it's otherwise I would just shut up and do something else. But I really trust the emotional bond that there is between us, between you and the film. I trust that you don't need to be taken by the hand in order to understand what my characters are going through, whether it's physically or mentally or both. And that's my job, obviously, to make this arise in my directing very much. But yeah, I do rely very much because personally, as a moviegoer and as a movie lover, I tend to get out pretty easily of the film if I feel that the core of the film or the stakes are being explained to me. Because to me, you see, the stakes of a film, it's like a grail. Like you have to go on a crusade through the film in order to reach it and to gain it. You know, it's something that I don't take for granted, and I think that should not be taken for granted from the beginning of the film. It's something that, to me, almost comes afterwards, you know. And most of the films that are like in my pantheon of the film that I love the most and that have given me an education, both as a moviegoer and as a filmmaker, are films that I did not understand fully right away, and yet that I felt were calling me as a person. You know, like they would make me feel seen in a way that even maybe I didn't see myself, and yet it was there, which made me want to go back to it. And that's the experience that I hope, you know, the audience takes from my films.
Now, this is just for me, but I'm dying to ask what a couple of those movies are, because I'm always looking for recommendations.
You know, I mean, this is, again, if you've read a lot of my, you know, some of my interviews, that's not going to be a mystery, obviously, everything Cronenberg. That's pretty clear. There is a film that I like to talk about, considering Alpha, that really came strongly in my mind when I started getting into that journey, was Cria Cuervos by Carlos Saura, which is a film that I've seen the first time in my life when I was 8. It's the story of an 8-year-old girl who lives in Franquist Spain, you know, at the time of the dictatorship, and her mom is dead, and her father dies at the beginning of the film in the bed with his lover, and she's left to live with her sisters, her aunt, and her grandma, who's becoming senile. Well, that's not a very happy film, and yet it's a film that is completely seen through the inner journey of the main character, who's 8. And I think this is insane. I'm going to explain to you something. Is that when I saw it the first time, I was 8.
It's
And
crazy.
it is the first film that changed the way I watched films. Because before that, I tended to go for a film because of its universe, because of the story, of its atmosphere, because it looked good or whatever. It was the first time that I actually felt seen and connected to a character as if it was real, and as if our relationship was real, and as if almost we were twins. And in this film, Anna, the main character, listens to Jeanette Porquetevas a lot during the film in this little vinyl, you know, device, whatever that there was at the time. And my parents bought it for me afterwards, and I would also listen to it constantly. So I had a very big, like, you know, not only connection, but I transferred myself into her and vice versa, which really changed the way I saw film. And then you can imagine my surprise when I saw again this film years and years and years later as a young adult, and I realized that I was actually connecting with a very old man. That was a little bit of a shock, because I really thought that in a way that only a woman or someone my age could have done this in a weird way, and yet it was the vision of childhood of not only of an old person but of a man. And that was very intriguing to me, and I think that I share with Carlos Saura this very dark view of childhood that is still yet poetic, in the sense that childhood, to me and to him apparently, is a place where, you know, actually we are like a sponge. Like we get everything, we feel everything. If there is something off, if adults are lying to us or trying to protect us or trying to sugarcoat things, we're going to feel the uneasiness, we're going to feel the malaise there is, and that's exactly what he portrays there, this hypersensitivity that kids have. And that's something that I share very much, and that I think I try to implement a little bit in Alpha.
I'm curious because using this, mysterious virus where we see the results, where people are literally turning to stone, it's so horrifying but beautiful the way you see it. And I love how it's revealed. It's almost like matter of fact because you see it through the lens of these caretakers, and can you sort of talk about how you chose to make that reveal?
That is so important what you just said, because that's exactly that. That's the thing is that, so obviously it's no mystery that this disease refers to AIDS, right? I mean, it's no mystery that this period of time refers to the peak of the AIDS pandemic in the 80s and 90s. I always say that it's not a movie about AIDS, because if it were a movie about AIDS, then I would have treated the symptoms of AIDS, and I would have treated the political aspect that is linked necessarily to this is the battle of ACT UP and everything they have done in order to fight society, to fight the mistreatment that society imposed on those patients. That's not what I have done here. Here, for me, what I wanted for us is to feel the absolute horror of what happened, because the main virus was fear to me. It's the spreading out of fear in society that led to such a moral and ethical drawback at the time. And in that, this society that I present is the society that I remember in the 80s, 90s. But because it is not about the political aspect of the disease, I didn't feel like I was justified to actually use the portray, to depict the actual symptoms. So I had to create another disease, right, in order to make that film, which is not, as I said, a historical film at all, by any means. So your question, if I remember, was about
how it's revealed, sort of.
Exactly, and that's the important thing, and that's why I link this to that, is because knowing, obviously, where I come from, knowing the reputations of my films and the effect it has on some viewers, and also, I mean, let's say the truth, like what most people got from my two previous films, which is like the shock value of it or the gory aspect of it, whether I wanted it or not, because I don't believe in shock value, but I certainly understand why we can take it from this. To me, it's obviously not about that, but my fear was that people would come to see Alpha as a show, like as a go fest, basically, and that there would be some enjoyment in that. That would have been terrible for me, because that's the exact opposite that I want, that I wish we could share here. The exact opposite. For me, this movie is a movie about love, it's a movie about empathy, it's a movie about understanding, and it's a movie also about reparation. It's a way, in a way, to give reparation and to pinpoint the horrible, horrible way society, the world entirely turned against a fringe of population, telling them that they deserve what they got because of their lifestyle. Which is something that, by the way, for those who are younger in the audience, was extremely palpable in the 80s and 90s, to a level that you would be shocked nowadays to actually witness.
They wouldn't let people in hospitals.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
They would abandon people in the hospitals, they would refuse burials. They would basically, grief has been denied to all these families, and also because of the shaming that happened at the time, grief was also denied because they could not talk about their losses, because their losses were necessarily shameful. And it was, in my memory, a very terrible and dark time. And so, knowing that these expectations coming from my films, I decided to basically never create any form of expectations as far as the victims of the disease are concerned, and to just show them as they are, people needing for care, needing to be helped, and more importantly, as human beings who have a right to belong to the world of my film. So basically, what it means is that I pretty much use the opposite of what you would do in order to create a climax. If you want to create a climax in a film, especially when we're talking about body horror, what you're going to do is that you're going to play on time, you're going to play on expectations, you're going to implant, things in the audience's heads that haven't happened yet, but that they will expect will happen, hence growing expectation, hence fear and suspense. That's really Hitchcock 101. If you've seen Titane, it's exactly what I've done in the scene where she breaks her nose on the sink. Okay? You don't see anything, but because you know it's gonna come, and I basically build up everything so that you know it's gonna come. When it comes, you jump up, and yet you don't see anything, but you think you've seen something. Here I
hear it.
Yeah, and the sound obviously plays a big part in it. Here I did the opposite. When we discover for the first time the patients, I never linger on them, I don't stop at them. This is a dolly track. And we follow mom, actually we don't follow them, we follow mom, and we follow her caring gesture, giving them food and apologizing for the incompetency or the abandonment of the rest of the staff, promising them care to come. And that's it, and you just follow them, and so obviously you have this little, probably, a feeling of, I've just seen something, but I'm not sure what I just saw, but because you just pass on like this, you just accept it as it is. Mm-hmm. And for me, this is an important, very important thing, because one, it means that there is never any distance between you and them. We know that these symptoms are not real, and yet the way you meet them completely includes them in the daily life of the film, hence in your daily life as well. So the distance that genre usually impose, which is a safety distance, because when you see a genre movie, and especially a horror movie, it's a safe place to categorize your fear, because you know it's never going to happen, you know you're not going to be followed by a serial killer with a white mask, except if you're very unlucky. and when you get out of the theater, you had your scare, it felt good, you purged, and then you can move on, because these fears are irrational, and that's why we love horror movies, right? To purge our irrational fears. Except that here the fear is very rational. The fear that I'm talking about is very rational. You're losing your loved ones from a disease, and the fear also to be ostracized by society, because all of a sudden you come sick, and in the worst moment you need help and everyone abandons you. All these are very rational fears, and of course mortality, altogether. And so yeah, that's why I created this anti-climax. So that even no matter what they could have looked like, no matter what the iconography I came up with would have been, you were already accepting them as they are, meaning as human beings, not as others.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in a different context, it's kind of beautiful. So and to put someone in marble is to lionize them to some extent.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. There are two things in your question. I mean, in what you just said, is that obviously the choice of marble, which is a very noble material, is very conscious and clear. It was clear from the get-go, because the idea was to elevate the lives and deaths of these people who have been seen as lesser by the rest of society, and to give them back the verticality that they deserved, and to somehow elevate them and sanctify them in many ways. We know that marble is what recumbent effigies in churches and cathedrals are made like. They're reserved to saints or sanctified kings, and that's exactly how I wanted you to see them. Not only at the moment when they die, but also before, when the symptoms are starting to develop on their bodies and stuff like this. I always wanted to fight the unconscious desire to be repelled. Again, knowing where I come from, cinematically speaking. You know what I mean? I knew that there was a desire to be repelled, and I really tried to fight this. However, you used the word beautiful, and this word was the source of a very big conundrum within me. When I was writing, and when I'm writing, I'm also directing, but I'm also creating the scenes in my head. And I thought very naively originally, I want people to see them as beautiful. That was my goal. But you see, beauty is a concept that is objective under false pretenses. It's actually not at all an objective concept, because every single era since the dawn of humanity has had its academic standards for what beauty should be. And obviously these standards are very different from the Renaissance to nowadays. And it means that it is imposed as something that is temporarily objective when it is actually a mutating concept, hence being subjective. The second thing is that what I'm going to find beautiful, anyone in this audience could find absolutely ugly, repellent, bland, or whatever. Or, you know, we don't have the same sense of beauty, each one of us. So how do I do that? How do I make them beautiful? And this conundrum was alleviated when I wrote the scene in the waiting room where she runs into her teacher and his partner. And the partner says, like, if my mom was there, she would say that I look like an Apollo, like I'm beautiful, and that I look like a Greek statue, which is something that obviously you would expect a mom to say about her son. But then Alpha says, no, but you're beautiful, that's true. And when I wrote this line, and I projected myself into directing the actress who would be Melissa at the end of the casting, I thought you really, really need to tell her that she really means it. It's not out of politeness, or it's not out of social awkwardness or whatever. She really means it. Like, you have to feel it in the tone. And all of a sudden I realized that my point of view of what's beautiful or not beautiful as Julia Ducournau, no one cares. It's completely irrelevant. I mean, I'm irrelevant. The only thing that's important is that she finds him beautiful, because she's our guide. Her eyes are our guide on this world. And if she does, then you will, necessarily.
I think that's literally my favorite scene in the movie. I'm so happy that you singled that out. There is so much that I could ask and talk about, but obviously, I want to thank you all for joining us. This movie actually comes out in America in March. Please spread the word. It is such a special film. Thank you for coming.